Santa made me an atheist. Like every other American kid, I was taught that Santa was responsible for the Christmas magic. I loved the stories of Rudolph, the decorations, and gathering of my family in front of a fire while it was snowing outside. It honestly was some of my fondest memories of my family when most of them were alive. All that changed when I was 6 on Christmas Eve. I was eagerly anticipating the arrival of Santa. So I crawled out of bed, tiptoed to my bedroom door, and peeked out to see my mom sitting on the couch wrapping present, talking on the phone. I stood there watching her wrap gift after gift and eating the cookies we left out for Santa. I was in disbelief. Those were Santa's cookies. She helped us put them out knowing that she was going to eat them. If she knew that she was going to eat them, then she knew Santa was never coming in the first place. I started to silently cry as I quietly closed my door and went back to my bed to roll up in a ball. That was the beginning of the unraveling of me trusting my mother, elders, and all the other adults that played into the lie of Santa. I started to question everything that was being taught to me. I no longer took things at face value. I was obsessed with facts versus opinions or feelings. Then, around the age of 7, I was in Sunday school Baptist, and my Sunday school teacher was teaching us about how you have to accept God's love into your heart to be saved. Just so happened that in my social studies class we were learning about India and their culture. So my hand shot up. What about all those people in India that are born not knowing God's love? There are no Christians there. How do they know God's love? My teacher quickly replied, "That's why we have missionaries." To shut the question down, I didn't reply. I just sat thinking about the missionaries. One knew a few friends whose family were missionaries. They would tell me that it would be their family or they'd go with a group. I guess the group couldn't be too big, maybe 20. IDK. Sunday school was released, and my attention went elsewhere for a while. One night I was up late staring at the ceiling thinking about India, missionaries, God's love, etc. I knew from my social studies class that India was millions of people that belonged to other religions than Christianity. Then I thought about the size of missionaries and how many people that could reach, eventually concluding that there's no way for every single person in India to have contact with a missionary to hear the word of God. My mind kept on tumbling and turning with questions. If that's true for India, what about other places where they don't know the word of God? Why would God create millions and millions of people just to condemn them to hell? They never got the opportunity to know God's love. If God is a loving God, he wouldn't do that. But then again, he does, and thus isn't loving. The contradictions of what I had been taught all my life to believe and devote myself to as the truth were not true at all. I felt the same way then as I felt the night I found out Santa wasn't real. Then I finally whispered it out loud. There is no God, as I crawled up into a tiny ball and cried myself to sleep. A few weeks later I was at my grandmother's house, and I told her I don't think there's a God. She was the first person I told since concluding this weeks earlier. Easy to say it did not go well. She started to cry and scream circular questions. Then who created the tree out there? The acorn did. Who created the acorn? The tree did. During that exchange she taught me that sharing this with anyone who believed in God was not a good idea. And everyone I knew believed in God. So I felt very othered for quite some time. For a number of years afterwards I would go from domination to domination trying to seek out a version of God that made sense to me. Which none of them did, as they were all just slightly different versions of the same jello. It wasn't until I stumbled across the term atheist when I was 16 that I finally felt at peace with a label describing my lack of belief. While I did try to believe again, and so desperately wanted to, I never once returned to God's love and have been an atheist ever since, learning Santa Claus was a collective social lie.